So cancer has been called the emperor of all diseases. It's been known since ancient times, and for all of human history, it's been known as an exceptionally deadly killer. No matter how much medical technology we invent or how many miracle drugs big pharma claims to roll out, cancer seems to continue to kill people in droves and never goes away. So is that because the disease is just really hard to defeat? Or is it because we were lied to about what cancer itself is? Cancer, we're told, is the uncontrolled growth of the body's own cells. The cells of your lungs or of your liver or of your brain, they just grow out of control, and then you get tumors, and eventually those tumors kill you. Well, what if that's all BS? What if cancer isn't really explosive cell growth at all? What if it's something completely different? Decades ago, German medical doctor Alfons Weber theorized that the real cause of cancer is from infection by a microparasite. So it's the growth of these microparasites, according to him, and the growth of their egg sacs that causes the bodily damage associated with cancer, he argued. So if this theory is true, then literally everything that we know about cancer is completely wrong. And that would explain why our treatments are so totally ineffective. No matter how profitable they are for big pharma, they don't cure cancer. Lee Merritt is a doctor specializing in orthopedic and spinal surgery. She's been the president of the Association of American Physicians and Surgeons, and she joins us now. Dr. Merritt, thank you so much for coming. We appreciate you being here.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've nailed it, in my opinion, is that that's one of the things that I stumbled across during COVID. I started out just trying to understand, because I'm an orthopedic surgeon. I'm not a virologist or anything. So I started just studying everything as I got cancel cultured for talking about masks. So I started studying everything, and I suddenly stumbled across those German guys. And I said, wait a minute. And there were things showing up on the internet showing literally pictures of cancer cells with these microparasites. You could actually see them as they broke out. And, for my whole career as a spine surgeon, I would biopsy little, I could do it without opening up the spine. So they'd call me and I'd go in and biopsy spine tumors. I'd send them off fresh to the pathologist, and little did I know all these years that sometimes pathologists saw little motion in these cells, and they called it like idiopathic cancer motion. They never asked themselves what's going on. But what if I told you that cancer, acne rosacea, multiple sclerosis, and rheumatoid arthritis, 4 different diseases in 4 different areas of medicine, what if they can all be treated with parasite medication? And that turns out for those diseases to be true. A pathologist, I think McDonald is his name. He was in Florida, I believe. He looked at 100% of dead MS patients. He had a series of 10 patients that died of multiple sclerosis. 100% of them had parasites in the brain and spinal cord, in the area in which we think of, when we do as a spine surgeon, I would do neurologic workups all the time. And, you'd get an MRI of the brain and spinal cord to make the diagnosis. And they'd come back saying, oh, there are plaques on the brain and spinal cord, but we never asked, what are those plaques? We just said, oh, you have MS. So in the big picture here, we have a book called the ICD-10, which shows that we have 70,000 disease diagnoses you can come up with and codify for Medicare and Medicaid and all these different government agencies. Are there really 70,000 diseases? Or are there 70,000 presentations of a few root causes? That's where we need to go back.
Yeah, we've talked about parasites on this program a lot. As a matter of fact, you go to purgesuddenly.com. We have a formula to fight parasites. And this formula, I know that you endorse this formula, but these things take over your body. And they will defecate inside of you. They vomit inside of you. They eat all of the things that are good for you. And then they leave behind all of the poisons and toxins that are bad for you. It's basically an alien invasion of your body. Is that right?
That is right. And actually, that may be truer than when you say alien invasion. I mean, are these things natural? I will say that in the big picture,
are you suggesting that there's like lab-grown parasites that are intentionally released into our food and into the things that we consume in order to infiltrate our body? Do you really think that our government would do that to us?
Yeah. And it's not just our government. I'm going to tell you, we live in the Truman Show. And, it's really not just about you've seen the movie. I mean, I just had seen it a month ago, but it is such a good metaphor for where we are right now.
Yeah, Jim Carrey, for those people who haven't seen it, The Truman Show, starring Jim Carrey.
Yeah. And, he's born into a reality TV show. So he's born into a false reality. And for 30 years, he lives in it without realizing it's a false reality. And why is that possible? Because it's internally consistent. And because the guys in the control room control the narrative. Now, here's one that I just discovered. And it really, because when you talk about science in this, people say, well, that might be true of politics, but that can't be true of science because, we got PhD students, we got universities, think tanks, we got all these publications. How can they all be lying? Well, let me just tell you, here's a little fun factoid. Okay. After World War II, I'll just tell you the punchline and then I'll tell you how it got there. The intelligence services, or the service created with Mossad, CIA, and MI6, they own they own all of scientific and medical publishing. What? Here's how I discovered that. After World War II, Charles Galton Darwin, he's the grandson of Charles Darwin, the explorer, and Alexander Fleming discovered penicillin. They got together. They went to the British government. They said, hey, look what happened in World War II, the science. We would have been a lot better off had we been able to really communicate well, and we need better scientific publishing around the world. And the British government, without consulting anybody, said, no problem. We can do that. And boom, why could they do that? Because the MI6 owned Buttersworth. MI6 being their equivalent of CIA.
Right.
Buttersworth, the biggest medical scientific journal in the world. So they and it's owned by their intelligence spy agency. Then they combined it with the Germans. And now, guess who they made? You can't make this one up. The first editor-in-chief of the biggest now scientific publishing house in the world was Robert Maxwell. Okay, Robert Maxwell, who was provably a double agent. He worked for the British against the Germans in World War II. He was buried on the Mount of Olives, so he's a Mossad agent. But the claim to infamy is his daughter is Ghislaine Maxwell, pedophile consort of Jeffrey Epstein. It's a cute club, and we're not in it. But you have to control the narrative. You have to control publishing if you're going to pull off the Truman Show of science, and they've done that. Okay, so they've let us, it's not just about this. It's about things like the PCR test. Okay, here's, in the Truman Show, when he starts realizing he's in a false reality, this light falls from what he thinks is the sky, and it's a stage light, almost hits him. He goes, what? How can this be real? Well, for me, that light was the PCR test. And it's not just that they overcycled it. It's that when I ran those sequences on the PCR test through the index of genetic, where do things come from? It didn't show up SARS-CoV-2, the virus they claim. It showed up human genomes. There were 18 tests. I ran 12 of them, and then I gave up, and I said, dear God, they're testing to our own human genome.
So who wouldn't test positive then at that point?
Well, that's right. And so this is a beautiful thing. So so every test I ran came up, Homo sapiens gene 8, Homo sapiens gene 5, Homo sapiens this, Homo sapiens that. That's us. So, and I can tell you, I have an hour talk on this, why this is when you take a step out, just like Truman did, when you actually get outside the Truman Show, you realize everything they've been telling us, it just can't work that way. It sounds all sciencey, but it can't work like they said.
So it's possible that the people who got this DNA altering, gene altering, mRNA, bioweapon, poison injection, it's possible that they're no longer Homo sapien, which is why they might not ever test positive for COVID-19. And then they can tell you that it was an effective vaccine. Because they're no longer human. Is that possible? Is it possible that just because you haven't had it, you're always going to be a Homo sapien?
Yeah, I guess anything's possible, but here's the other thing I would say, is that there's problems with that story too. Is it really mRNA, or what are they really doing? What happened during COVID? What did they really do during COVID lockdowns? They put up these 5G towers. We have absolute proof of electromagnetic transmission of disease. It turns out that mRNA has a half-life between 3.5 minutes and 16.5 hours, even this altered mRNA. How do you even get that out of the factory in that time frame, right? If you're going to tell me that this is mRNA in the vaccines, you're going to have to explain to me how you made a vaccine round the clock in 14 seconds on average, around the clock in all your production facilities without one change even if you start 6 months before you got the EUA, you couldn't do it. They couldn't have made it that fast. And the mRNA does not last like they're saying.
Wow.
And I will just say that everything we're seeing, the blood clots, all the stuff we're seeing, it can all be explained by the nanoparticle, the lipid nanoparticle. You don't need mRNA to explain what we're seeing. So you're right. It could be they're changing our genome. It could be they're just doing what they've done for 1,000 years. They're poisoning us. They're irradiating us, and they're convincing us that we have infectious disease. So we have to run away from each other and put on a mask and do all these, standing 6 feet in a circle. Are you kidding me? It's a satanic ritual thing, but it doesn't make any scientific sense.
People bought it hook, line, and sinker because they used the fear tactic, right? That fear
That's
emotion will make people do things. Even the strongest males who fear nothing, if they feel that feeling, if they feel the feeling of fear, you can literally make somebody do the unthinkable, something they would otherwise never ever consider doing. Jumping out of the World Trade Center towers, for example.
Yep.
Running through your neighborhood naked in the middle of the night because you fear that somebody's coming in to kill your children. I mean, fear will make you do a lot of things. Even the strongest minded people, you feel that sense, and all of a sudden you're doing things that you would normally never do, including injecting yourself with something that's not been tested, that just came to market.
Believing in viruses you can't prove exist. I mean, here's the thing. The good news in all this, when you look at how the Truman Show ends, because I do think there's predictive programming. They have to tell us kind of what they're doing to us. At the end of the game, he overcomes his fear. They gave him an artificial fear of water so he wouldn't leave the island. But he overcomes that fear. He realizes something's not right. He jumps in the sailboat and he goes out and he finds the wall and he starts to leave the set. He knows the game now. The game is up. He's going to leave. Of course, everybody up in the control room now is going, bonkers. They're saying, can he leave? What happens when he leaves? Can he really do that? And just remember what Ed Harris, who's playing the director, this is what he says. He says, he's always been able to leave. He just didn't know he could leave. That is where we're sitting right now. Okay. We have the opportunity to wake up and to realize the lot, but we have to start looking at things and we've been accepting, as I did my whole time in medicine. I go to talks now and I say, I'm Lee Merritt, MD, and I'm a recovering doctor. I believed everything they told me. Now I don't believe anything. That really doesn't show good, solid, logical, scientific proof. A lot of things, it turns out all this virus stuff, it's just not real. And that's a hard thing for people to buy. They get sick, but you're getting sick because they know in ancient medicine, by the way, their language tells you the whole story. When they said there's a new virus breaking out and spreading around Wuhan that's killing people, they told you the truth, but they told it in the old tongue. Virus in Latin means poison. So these, Hippocrates wrote in the Oath of Hippocrates, why did he write in there that I will not poison anybody and I will not be paid by somebody else to poison somebody? That's literally in the Hippocratic Oath. Now, if it weren't a problem, it wouldn't be in there. It was a moral problem because people know who's the better to kill people stealthily through poisons than doctors. This is the reality that people
trust because they wear a white lab coat and a stethoscope and they have that DR before their name.
I get you.
Recovering doctor. I like that.
Yeah.
Recovering medical professional. Dr. Lee Merritt, you're amazing. You get rid of parasites. You get rid of a lot of things. Is that right?
Absolutely. I think if we would look at it, ancient medicine only did two things. They get right with God. That's why they had temples where the medical doctors practice, and detoxify yourself. So I think when we look at what really causes disease, and by the way, I have 4 generations of medical books in my house. I went back to see, when did we start talking about viruses? I thought I'd have to go back to my dad's or before. No, my son's book, viruses, but I just had to go back to my own textbooks. In the 1970s, we didn't talk about viruses. If you look up transmission of disease in my big textbook of infectious disease, it talks about parasites. So root causes, now we can think about not only toxins and not only, you still need to get right with God, but now we have parasites, we have EMF toxicity, and we have nutritional deficiencies. Yeah. 5 things. I am going to predict to you that we don't find too many other root causes. We need to start looking at those things and not letting us play disease, what I call disease whack-a-mole. We go from, remember how they tried to convince us, now it's monkeypox.
Yeah.
Next it's going to be Marburg.
Yeah.
Next it's going to be, It's all nonsense, people. We have to stop looking. We don't let them play disease whack-a-mole on us anymore. Don't keep running around. That's fear. And when they're desperate, we're winning because now they're breaking out in wars. It's all the same structure. It's the same people. Because see, in Truman's show, it was easy. They only had one person to control. They had maybe 30 people up in the control room and all these people to write the script. What do you do when you have 200, 300 people in the control room and 8.5 billion in the show? Okay, that's where we are. We outnumber these guys 1 million or 2 million to 1.
Which is why they will have no safe place to hide when 8.5 billion people finally realize what has been done to them. When they wake up in the Truman Show, when they no longer have the fear of water.
Or the fear of each other. The fear that I might get a disease because you coughed on me.
Yeah.
Or the fear that you're a terrorist and I'm not. They're dividing us along every line they can use to divide us. When we realize it's really humanity against the uber parasites, it's over.
That's right. Dr. Lee Merritt, couldn't have said it better myself. Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it.